Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are now at the final round of the Platinum Platform Awards 2011. Just kidding, we only got 3 more rounds to go. Round 6, Length. You know, it's funny, when a movie is long, people complain about it, and when the game is too short, it's an insult to injury. You know, games better be long because we paid so much money for a video game, and all that money spent should be worth the price by guaranteeing that you have many hours upon hours of play. Games that were considered the greatest of all time were never known for being too short, so that's what I'm judging here in this round, the game's length. Alice Madness Returns. The game is divided into 6 chapters, and I couldn't believe how one singular chapter takes hours upon hours to finish, and that's including trial and error. I think one of the biggest reasons why this game is so long was because the enemies in this game were never too easy to defeat, especially the big ones. It's not as easy as to just dive in there and attack someone. They have a large amount of hit points, they defend themselves too much, and at times you have to wait patiently until they open their weak spot for you. It is indeed time consuming to defeat these foes, but it adds that certain level of danger since this is already a dark game and you don't want to feel like it's just a walk in the park. Another game that was longer than your traditional platformer is Rayman Origins. This game is packed with so many creative and imaginative levels that shouts out the word adventurous. It's packed with over 60 levels, and those levels take a lot of time if you're looking for all the Electoons and Lums. And yet you have to replay those levels more than once because you have a time trial mode where you have to race the clock to the end of the level and also get the maximum number of Lums to fully complete a certain level. It will indeed take a long time to get a 100% completion out of this game. Since Outland is a Metroidvania, like all the other games in this subgenre, does not have levels, but rather one big massive area with so many locations to go. But since you can't reach your goal, which is the final boss, you need to find new power-ups and abilities to gain access to new areas, and at occasional times you have to go through backtracking. But at least you don't have to go on foot because there's at least one teleporter in every zone that you're in to jump shift so quickly. All you have to do is just to reach to a teleporter, so that means that all the other teleporters that you haven't reached yet is inaccessible to the player. Yes, you can argue that when you teleport, it easily shortens the game, but the game is still long due to the many power-ups and abilities that you have to collect within your adventure, and not to mention that this game has a lot of room for trial and error. The hours you get playing Ratchet & Clank 0 for 1 is incredibly lengthy. You have to go through many hours of destroying enemies and objects, solving puzzles, and teamwork. The game is divided into 9 levels, and to keep it fresh in each level, it's divided into numerous checkpoints to indicate which of these players have the most points. And not to mention that many of the bosses and mini-bosses are just as hard, and they take a long time to defeat them. Little Big Planet 2 is just like the original, where there are zones, and in them, there are numerous of levels. There are a total of 6 zones, and each of these zones has from 5 to 7 levels, and that's also counting the bonus levels. All in all, it has a total of 30 levels. It takes about a half an hour to finish, so with 30 levels, you have about 15 to 30 hours to finish the game, if you're not counting restarting the whole level because of dying. And if that's not enough, you got even more hours added if you want to collect all the items for customizing your own levels. Plus even more if you have more players in your co-op to gain access to secret areas. Plus even more if you played hundreds to thousands of levels posted online. Plus even much more if you customize your own levels. So bottom line, you have to spend so many hours to get the full experience right from this game. And now for Sonic Generations. You got a total of 9 stages, such as the Green Hill Zone, Chemical Plant, Sky Sanctuary, Speed Highway, City Escape, Seaside Hill, Crisis City, Rooftop Run, and Planet Wisp. And plus Casino Nights if you got the DLC. Each with 2 acts, 3 side missions, and a boss. For a game that has 9 stages, it was expected to feel short, and it was, but not as short as the loser for this round. And now we come to the loser of this round, and I have to give it to Super Mario 3D Land. I know, it's shocking that this Mario game is being eliminated for its length. There are only 8 worlds, and they have a minimum of 5 levels, and you know what? Each of them take about 10 minutes to finish. I got this game for Christmas, and you know what? I only finished it within a week. A week, people! I know that platformers in the past could be finished in one sitting, but in today's standards of gaming, with a game that's so expensive that only provided less than a month of enjoyment, isn't must be eliminated. You know, this game seems to be like the perfect Mario game because it wasn't too stingy with the power-ups and it was much less limited compared to other power-ups in other 3D Mario games. And it provided plenty of room for exploration that I want in the 3D platformer. And yet, its only fault is that it was too short. Oh wait, there are also 50 special levels that add the hours of gameplay, but actually, they only take me about another week to finish. Heck, even New Super Mario Bros. On the Nintendo DS was longer to finish compared to this game. The other nominees took me a minimum of at least a good long month, and a game that only takes me less than a month to finish is upsetting. You know, I think that this game is a bit rushed just so that a Nintendo 3DS could have a Mario game, but at this point, I'm just gonna have to wait for another 3DS game to come out that isn't a remake. So the one eliminated, Super Mario 3D Land. Round 7. Difficulty. Does anyone know what's the purpose of even playing the video game other than the story and graphics? Simple. Challenge. Challenge is fun because it gets people all excited and is never going to know whether or not he or she will win or lose. And winning is the main goal to everyone, whether if it's a sport or an activity. You know, games that are considered the greatest of all time were never known for being too easy, which is the reason why some games that are way too easy lacks replay value. However, many games can't be considered perfect because some of them give you cheap to unfair challenge. And whatever I say is too easy or difficult, it's all based on a personal preference in gaming skills. And I know that not everybody's going to agree what I consider to be too easy or too hard, like all those other show-offs that gives me bullshit comments on my hardest missions of Jak 2 video. But anyway, all I want is a nice balance from being too easy or unfair with its hard difficulty. So let's see which of these standing contenders are way off this balance. Let's begin with Ratchet & Clank All for One. And I have to say that this game took me a long time to finish because many of the mini bosses and boss fights were actually overpowering that even a 4-player co-op wasn't even enough. I tried to play the later levels in this game by myself, but it wasn't worth the unbearable experience when you get from this game alone. It requires a lot of skills and reflexes to defeat these countless enemies, and it was actually harder at times to get your partner to do what you want, such as passing an object to them and make them throw to a wall to create an opening, not understanding how to solve these puzzles, and so on. That was kind of a pain in the ass to play online. And not to mention, you don't have the ability to upgrade your nanotech in this installment of the series, meaning that you can't evolve your weapons like before. This is a huge downer for me, but let's move on to the other games. I don't think that there's a single person that said Rayman Origins was easy with the straight face. Of course, the beginning levels were enjoyable and basic, but later on, it gets harder and harder that it tests your patience at a great degree, so it's definitely expected to have a lot of room for trial and error. Remember that I said that this Rayman game is the most fast-paced of the series? Well, rushing is what you're gonna go through, and like the Sonic games, when you go too fast, you can't react so quickly with the stuff that you'll bump into. What's even harder is trying to get 100% in just one level. Collecting all the lumps in one level just to get a medal, and beating the best time in time trial mode was really ridiculous at times because you have to memorize the level's layout and how to overcome these obstacles within seconds. For the hardest levels that seems almost impossible for some people, isn't really all hopeless to get past through because when you die numerous of times, the game asks you if you want to skip the level. You know what? They don't give you that bullshit super guide that the CPU plays the whole level like Donkey Kong Country Returns did when you want to skip a level. But your consequences of not passing the level is that you don't get any of the Electoons as your reward. Plus, the co-op feature is perfect for a game like this because you're not limited with lives, and when there's a player that gets killed, he or she isn't out of the game, so they can return into the game at any time as long as there's at least one player that's still in play. With all honesty, as difficult as Rayman Origins was, it still has that level of fairness since you have unlimited continues, really nice checkpoints, and everything else that avoids throwing your controller. You have so much difficulty, but yet at the same time, you have all the advantages as long as you have platforming skills. Next, we got Sonic Generations. I'm gonna keep this short because the challenge here is the same as all the other Sonic games. If you run too fast, expect to bump into something that will get you hurt or stop you from running too fast. Science has proven that the faster you go, the more risk you're gonna take. The boss fights were indeed challenging as you revisit these familiar bosses, but in a totally different format on how to beat them. But there's one big thing that I think everyone who has played this game that I think that many of you can agree on. This version of Crisis City. Oh man, was this level just brutal with the buildings and platformers flying away causing cheap deaths and almost everything thrown at you that truly tests you as a gamer. I just couldn't believe that I managed to even beat this level because it was really brutal to play through. And now on Outlands. Well, I'm going to be repeating myself, so I'm going to keep this short. Here's the basic thing that makes this game difficult. Switching colors, these countless enemies to kill, and even harder are these red and blue spores and beams and traps that keeps coming at random, and some of the toughest platform challenges yet. And then Alice Madness returns. I'm going to be really honest here and say that this game's challenge is something that you either love or hate. You have really challenging platforming segments, those countless button pressing moments that rush you to get past through before time limit runs out, and especially taking your enemies out. Out of all the numbers of enemies in a platformer, these ones are just so hard to take down. Traditional enemies in a platform game usually takes about at least one hit to kill them, but here you have to keep smashing, shooting, and slicing them so much because their HP is just so high. And for the biggest enemies especially, you need to open their weak spot in order to cause any damage. And that, my friends, is the reason why this game took me a long time to beat. These action sequences have got to be longer than the platforming sequences offered in this game. And damn, there were plenty of times where I just had to start over because of this overwhelming challenge offered here. But at least this game has some of the best checkpoints you can ask for from restarting all over again. And now, the loser of this round is going to come as a surprise for me to say this, but I'm going to say the easiest game out of the 6 has to be Little Big Planet 2. I know that this game wasn't the easiest game out of the nominees, but those games that are considered easy are already eliminated. So I'm judging this game's difficulty compared to the original. It wasn't as hard as the original. The original Little Big Planet was so punishingly difficult because they come up with so many new ideas and challenge that was out of expectation for the players, like being able to hold on to objects, very little height of jump, and the ridiculous obstacles that it was too overwhelming to bear. I think since I played the original so much, that playing the sequel was too familiar for me, and knowing how the game plays, you kind of know what to expect. The original took me so many months to finish, but the sequel, I'm only talking about the storyline levels, the game only took me about a month to beat. I give the sequel a lot of props for having characters to have voice acting and having an actual story. The boss fights did feel like actual boss fights rather than customized moving objects to pretend to be like a boss fight, and making the game a bit more fast-paced. But the game really needs some advantages on the new features they offered rather than throw them in there to make it amusing. I did like this game, but the challenge, it wasn't as thoughtful or as challenging as the original, or as challenging as these standing nominees for that matter. So the one eliminated, Little Big Planet 2. Round 8. Creativity. While other games from different genres today plays and looks more or less the same, platformers, however, provide something different in terms of design, imagination, and plenty of variety of everything to make the experience with just one platformer to feel whole. What I want in a game is spread out really great ideas that I've never seen before, and that's all I'm judging here. But I've already discussed about each of these games' creativity, and just repeating myself is just tiresome. I've already said that Alice Madness Returns explore more places of Wonderland that we've never seen before. Outland took ancient Asian and South American myths in a Metroidvania with a clever use of color switching. Rayman Origins throws everything that was so memorable about the series and made it much more imaginative. And Sonic Generations finally made a crossover with the old Sonic and new Sonic, and done it so perfectly that if other series with a crossover of the old designs with the new design characters won't work as good as Sonic Generations. All 4 of these games were really creative in its own right. And if you really want to see how creative they are, just look at the previous videos about what I said about each of these games, because really, we have to get to the final round of the Platinum Platform Awards. However, there is one game that I don't think it was as creative as the previous games from its own series. And now, for the loser of this round, I have to give it to Ratchet & Clank All for One. Now, let me be clear here to everyone watching this video. I am one of the biggest Ratchet & Clank fans that you'll probably ever meet because it's my favorite video game franchise ever, and I never overlooked any one of those games from the series. Whenever there's one game that comes out, I buy it right off at day one. Now let me get my feelings out of the way with All for One. When this game was announced and explained what it's about, I just expected that it's just co-op and nothing else. And boy was I right. Everything was similar to the Future series, which I thought we were done with, and yet as a Ratchet & Clank game, it feels watered down. We don't have gladiator fights, we don't have those open world crystal collecting levels, and most importantly, no nanotech, meaning that you can't level your weapons up. Nanotech is the backbone of the series, and that's something that no other video game series since and after has ever come to steal or rip off that element. Just having that taken away just made the game less exciting. I know that people are going to say that they need to take it away to make it balanced because other players who are ahead of the others will be overpowering. Well, all the enemies and bosses in this game are already overpowered that it's too overwhelming to even try to defeat them, even with friends. I know that this game's whole purpose was to be a co-op game, but there's times where I just want to play by myself, but I can't enjoy it at all because there are certain parts of the game that you can't solve by yourself. You know, all the good things that I said about this game in the Platinum Platform Awards, it's just me praising about the co-op, and really Insomniac Games could put out really new ideas, just like how they did with the open space world that I adore in A Crack in Time. Not to mention that the story is contrived, where they just made Nefarious all of a sudden the good guy, and Quark as president was illogical because as president, you need bodyguards to be protecting him. Seems like almost everything that Quark is doing in this game, the galaxy doesn't even care for their own president. And the new character designs of making their characters big head mode was overall unappealing. And the real main reason why this game lost this round is the weapons are unmemorable. How is that even possible to have a Ratchet & Clank game to have unmemorable weapons? Just how? Overall, I did have fun playing this game with my friends, but in order for any game in this competition to make it to the final round is if you improve the series and platformers in general. This, however, didn't for me. I know I've been talking a lot about this game because I do care about the series so damn much that I wanted to be improved. I mean, this November is going to be the franchise's 10th anniversary, and I really think it's a wasted opportunity to release a spin-off. Instead, they should do a Ratchet & Clank collection to celebrate my favorite video game series of all time. But however, we're stuck here in the middle of the road of the series. So the one eliminated, Ratchet & Clank All for One. Before we get to the final round, we shouldn't forget the games that were eliminated out of this competition, because without them, platformers wouldn't be alive today. So let's give a round of applause to these games eliminated out of the competition. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are now at the final round of the Platinum Platform Awards 2011. You know, last year's winner was Epic Mickey, and it was the best platformer of 2010. I'm going to tell you all right now that these 4 games you're looking at here right now are actually better than Epic Mickey. I am so proud that platformers today has gotten so much better, and yet it still has a lot of room for improvements, which is the reason why I'm so excited for all the games coming out in 2012. But before we name the winner, let me give you my gripes with these 4 games. You know, fuck it. There aren't that many problems with these games, like last year's nominees. I'm just going to praise the living shit out of these games and tell you why these games are not only great, but also important to expand the platform's genre today. First, let's begin with Alice Madness Returns. This game was fucking brutal, and not once did this game back down from being campy like almost every other incarnation that doesn't follow the dark nature from the book where it all started. With Madness Returns, it avoids all sorts of abominating the Wonderland mythos, but instead expanded so gratefully. Let me give you a basic idea of why this game was so great for me. I hated the original so much because of its poorly executed yet painful gameplay, terrible checkpoints where you have to keep making your own fucking save like in Doom, terrible platforming, bottom of the barrel basic puzzle solving, and lack of substance that had more style than anything else. Now looking at Madness Returns, it's actually the total opposite side of the coin. The combat, the checkpoints, the platforming, the challenge, and everything else not only impressed me, but it blew my mind. It was so good, in fact, that I wanted to play it more than once. I feel really sorry for everyone who couldn't enjoy this game because they can't see the game the way that most of us that love the game do, as it's not only just a game, but an art. The visuals just cry raw emotion and imagination. Even the story was captivating as well. I do admit that some of the dialogue was out of place and feels lifeless at times where they're just saying words, but this direction of Alice saving Wonderland is simultaneously a complicated and complex situation. As in, is she actually in Wonderland, or is she actually mentally ill? Would saving Wonderland help her mental illness, or cause her to become more insane? Love it or hate it, this game needed to be exactly what it needed to be. Next, Outland. You should all know that I love Metroidvanias, and I think it's a great platform subgenre that has an open world platforming world that can be accessed with the required power-ups. We had Super Metroid, we had Castlevania Symphony of the Night, we had Shadow Complex, and now we have Outland. A Metroidvania set in ancient legends where it deals with spirits, warriors, demons, and gods in the entire game. Just hearing that sound like the perfect concept for a game, and thrown in so much brilliant ideas with the usage of color. I've never seen a singular game that has the usage of color to be a significant part of the whole game. You have the power to survive various deadly objects by switching to the same color to be invulnerable. Which, by the way, since there has been plenty of people that tried to correct me on the last video accusing this game as an Ikaruga knockoff, I finally checked out the game, and I can see where you guys coming from saying that the color changing isn't anything new. But however, they borrowed what was left off from Ikaruga and put it in its full potential in many ways that I've never seen a game that does it like this before. In comparison to Ikaruga, the way they shoot out their beams for you to do color changing, and at times it becomes so difficult that it becomes incredibly unfair. But in Outland, they don't feel like an obstacle when they shoot out beams and spores, even though it already is, but rather it feels so magical and artistic each time you see these deadly objects, because it comes out with so many good ideas of putting the use of color that got me excited to see what's the next part of the game and see what else they're going to pull off with this concept. And again, it keeps challenging me with these brilliant ways of overcoming these obstacles. Even though the story sucks, the gameplay was just phenomenal and yet feels innovative like a dream come true. Just that level of excellence and so many good ideas just shows that Housemarque, if I'm pronouncing it right, truly show that they are real developers. And I'm telling for those who haven't played this game yet, you really need to try out this game. Next up, Rayman Origins. Everyone said it takes the charm from the original, took the memorable characters from the second, and the wackiness from the third. For me, it did that, plus did more by going beyond from what we know from the series. There are no rabbits ruining the series, it's all just what we love about the Rayman games and focus heavily on what the series never did before, and yet did all of that so epically. I'm going to flat out and say that the co-op feature is perhaps the best co-op that I've ever seen in a 2D platformer. There are no limits with lives, no frustration of getting back to the game once you're dead. It's all just consistent with the adventure. I've never seen a game that has so much balance out of playing the single player and co-op, and neither one of those modes were better than the other. Since this game went to the fast-paced direction, I couldn't believe the intensity you get when playing this game, which keeps adding the fun factor to the gameplay. You know the term, a breath of fresh air, whenever somebody experienced something different for once? Well, I took the biggest breath of fresh air each time I played this game. I was expecting this game just to be an updated version of the original Rayman game, but this is after all a much more different Rayman game that extends so much creativity within its levels. A whole level that has instruments, a bunch of levels that has food everywhere, and a sea world that can be traveled underwater, and other mystical worlds that feels like it belongs in a cartoon, but instead, this game feels like a dream. I don't know how else to explain it. It's all beautiful and incredibly detailed that doesn't feel at all cheap. All those years of waiting for this game to be released met my expectations. It doesn't feel at all like an ordinary video game. It feels like a wonderful, adventurous dream that brings a really good feeling when playing it. I know it borrows a lot of elements from the past Rayman games, but Origins took those familiar elements and feel like it was all brand new again, which is the reason why it feels really different for me. This set of variety of crazy things that are coming out of the imagination just spans this good feeling of appreciation and enjoyment. I'm telling you all right now that I'm just hooked into this game, and I don't think that I can get out of this hook anytime soon. And finally, Sonic Generations. Love them or hate any of them, in the 3D Sonic gaming world, since the demise of Sega making consoles, we've came from Arabian Nights, Black Knights, Werehogs, Space, and now we're in a crossover with the original Sonic. Now, you can't expect any other franchise in existence to have two old and new character designs to be their own character and feel like they can pull off their own crossover adventure together. We've heard it from the mainstream and old school Sonic fanboys for years. They kept ranting about modern Sonic. Now that we got Sonic Generations, all those people finally shut up and finally agree that this is a good Sonic game. But for Sonic Generations, I've got to say that it is the best modern Sonic game thus far. This game from beginning to end refused to stop satisfying the fans and kept going with a road trip to the past and kept remaking them with new ideas that are simply out of expectations. Having old school Sonic as a character just feels so nostalgic. I can see why fans really wanted him back so badly, because he represented the innocence and carefree nature of gaming that I once felt as a kid. Now, I'm not going to be on the debate which Sonic was better, but having both of these characters to be in one whole game was an ingenious idea, and as you go along, it just keeps getting better to the very end of the game. I'm just fully satisfied to see a game like this to be this incredible, and to anyone who hates this game and modern Sonic today is trying to be cool, needs to be trying harder. Now, you can see how hard it is for me to just choose one out of the 4 games here, but no more wasting time. It's time to name the winner of the Platinum Platform Awards 2011. And the winner of the Platinum Platform Awards goes to Rayman Origins. The real reason why I kept encouraging you all to support platformers today is because I want developers to make that perfect platformer, and that entire wait is finally over for me. To say that this is the best Rayman game ever made is an understatement. This has got to be one of the best 2D platformers ever created. There is no way on God's green earth can you call yourself a Rayman fan and consider this a disappointment when clearly it isn't. Heck, even people who aren't fans of the Rayman series consider this game fun, like my dad. True story. My father never played anything else but Mario Kart 64. Since then, it has been years that we've seen him play a different game and enjoy it, up till now. And for good reasons. The co-op feature is perfect for the whole family. It's not much of a consequence for anyone to die as long as there's at least one player that's good enough to play a platformer like this. I made a gaming accomplishment like no other for me to beat a whole game with my entire family playing along. But most of all, it's not just my family that actually love playing this game together, but also many of my friends that could never deny the game's awesomeness. This game is the perfect balance of having co-op and single player to be equally good. While there are many other games that has a co-op feature, I prefer to play alone at times. But most of all, this could be one of my favorite 2D platformers of all time after being finished with it, only to come back for more just to get the 100% completion, which is even a harder task to do. I'm happy that I haven't done a list of my favorite 2D platformers yet, because I've waited for a game like this for a very long time, because it has everything that I want in a 2D platformer. So much imagination put in, well-suited gameplay that's easy to use but harder to master, replay value with each and every level, laughs, beauty, and plenty of variety of almost everything. Don't hesitate to pick up Rayman Origins because it's worth it. Overall, congratulations Rayman Origins, you are the winner of the Platinum Platform Awards 2011. Thank you everybody for watching this award show, even though it took me a while to finish. Keep supporting platformers today, and see you all next year for the Platinum Platform Awards 2012. This show was brought to you by the Boot Chow 2011 Award. Oh, and one more thing. Here's a preview of my next upcoming video series, if, and only if, SOPA is dropped.